second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardon, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, Black Goose Nation? Braiden late on this Tuesday afternoon. Somebody, my special guest, he's moving into a new apartment, so he had some issues there. He's also a Dodgers fan, which makes me hate what I'm about to do. If you want your Dodgers gears, you gear up for the postseason. Click on the link in the description. Fanatics, MLB Shop, get it all, especially for you Dodger fans. I think a lot of CBU fans are Dodger fans. And with that being said, I'm going to bring in a big Dodger fan, and he is wearing his Dodger hat.
Not a Dodger hat, actually, but
voice of the Lancers, Braiden Bell. Look at this guy with his – I thought that was an LA hat. Why did I think that was an LA hat?
It doesn't matter. I mean, now that you say that, I did just move in, so I got props.
Oh, my goodness. The legendary Vince Scully.
But, yeah, I didn't know we were starting out with Dodger talk, so this is good. But
I figured it was a good time to promote some Dodger postseason gear with a Dodger fan. And, my Cubs aren't going to make the postseason this year, so I can't really, promote that. But, it figured like it was a good time.
Great time. Always a great time to do that. So first off, thanks for having me. And you're right. Moving sucks. That's breaking news. Moving is not fun, but we're about through it. Hopefully next time we do this, I have a cooler background than a bare wall. But we're going to work on that and see what we can do. But, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I may have to go back to an original lens so that everybody can see my wall here. That's pretty awesome. But, yeah, good times. By the way, what is the logo on your hat? I'm curious about that because, like I said, I thought the Dodgers.
This is Travis Matthew. So it's a golf brand. So it's not a team or anything. It's just a brand. I liked the hat because it does look like a logo of a team.
Right.
But, yeah, just –
it's kind of got the LA in it.
No, it's a T and an M.
I know, but if you see the little cross right there in that first, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a Dodger hat. I'm telling you, it looked like it.
Okay, now I'm seeing what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. Now I'm looking at my own hat in the camera, a little weird here, but yes, okay, you're right about that. But it is a T and an M.
Very nice, very nice.
There you go.
If anybody's wondering too, I'm not promoting them, but my hat, I get asked a lot, what it's for. This is for Monster Athletics. They make slow pitch softball bats. And for any softball coaches, and maybe we'll get to covering softball at some point down the road, get their fast pitch hype bat. I've heard great reviews about it. There's some colleges that are already using them. So I just want to clear that up. This is Monster Athletics. They're based out of California, I believe. So, yeah, good times. With that promotion and all that stuff, that's good times to start out a podcast episode, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk some Lancers. First off, let's talk about the soccer match that was the other night. Was it last night?
It was last night. Well, there was a women's match on Saturday night, and the men played last night on Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw, Tyler Mariucci, your athletic director, tweeting out that was it the largest or one of the largest crowds I've ever had for a soccer match, right?
Yeah, so largest school record. Now, with that being said, the new stadium did just open, so this was the third match for the men's team. The women's team has played 2 matches. So it's early on, and hopefully, those numbers continue to break. But, yeah, it was a really good record crowd, especially considering that it was Labor Day evening.
Yeah. And
it was also disgustingly hot and pretty humid for California, considering it was still 100 degrees when we started the thing at 7 o'clock. So those things considered, it was a great crowd.
Nice. If you haven't watched any, and we're not a soccer site, but we like to follow the WAC sports all over. 2 wins over top 5 teams so far this year on the men's side. I believe Utah Valley went toe-to-toe with Oregon State, who's in the top 10. That ended in a draw. Some really good soccer. And you're calling soccer matches right now, right? What do you think?
Yeah, well, and I mean, you're right. The WAC has looked pretty good so far, and it's one of those sports that the WAC is very sneaky in terms of being a mid-major conference and really one of the best ones, not only on the West Coast in the mid-major ranks, but really throughout the entire country. You mentioned Utah Valley, and then specifically going back to what I'm used to talking about, CBU, a big win over Gonzaga, and then last night beating San Diego, and they're down a bit, but yeah, I think you're exactly right that the talent overall in the conference is really solid, especially at the top half, and it's exciting to see whatever the sport is. Of course, we all want to see the WAC succeed and make some noise nationally. And men's soccer is certainly one of those sports that they can do that in.
See, I threw a wrench in all the people watching this that we're talking about soccer and baseball, and so let's get to it. Lancers, were the second team. Maybe they were the first team to release their non-conference schedule. Looking over it, they don't have as many non-D1s as they usually have had in the past 4 years. A lot of games in Riverside again in California. I think they go one time out of the state of California to Seattle to play the Washington Huskies. What are your thoughts on the schedule? I know that some people are there's some naysayers, I guess, because they get to play so many games at home. But on the flip side of it, I mean, Long Beach State, Big West champs. There was another one that was a really good Weaver State from the Big Sky. You get UNLV, who's always decent. Minnesota's kind of a middle of the road Big Ten school. Just kind of your thoughts, and then you go to Pac-12 country up there in Seattle. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, as far as the non-conference schedule goes, I think without a doubt, it's the best non-conference schedule that CBU's had since joining the WAC, and I don't even really know what would be comparable. I mean, last year, for example, CBU played at Arizona, of course, which was one of the 4 number 1 overall seeds in March Madness, and then Texas, which at the time of playing them, they were ranked inside the top 10. So obviously, really tough competition in those 2 games. But then in the rest of the schedule, I mean, if we're being honest, most of the opponents that CBU faced outside of UCR, which was a pretty solid Big West team, it wasn't really all that challenging. Whereas this year, you said it best. I mean, you open up right away with a tough game, and not many schools want to open up with a game that you could lose, unless it's like a bye game. But to host a game against a team that won over 20 games last year, won the Big West regular season title, almost won the tournament title in the Big West. It was a last-second sequence that Fullerton beat them on. So you open with them, and I think really the biggest thing for me is there aren't really that many games where you're like, okay, that's an easy win. You know what I mean? And I think in years past where you might have circled a game here and there, whether it's a non-D1 or a D1 program that's down or whatever, where you could circle that and basically be like, yeah, that's going to be a win, whether it's by 20 points or 40. There really aren't that many games like that in this year's schedule. You mentioned only the one non-D1. And then for me, yeah, you're not leaving the state of California, but besides the Washington game, which is a really good test. And I love that matchup as well as the Minnesota matchup, because not only are they Power 5 games, they are well-known schools, but you're not playing in Arizona or a Texas from last year where, if we're being honest, playing those 2 on the road last year, it would have taken a circa 2020 CBU at USC performance where you hit 23s and you kind of have to play absolutely perfect basketball to even have a chance against those teams. Minnesota and Washington are obviously very good. They have great athletes, very well coached. I mean, there's no question about that. Those will be tough games, but they're much more winnable, if you will, than taking on a Texas or an Arizona. And what's good for the conference, circling back to what we were just discussing about men's soccer, CBU beating a Minnesota or a Washington, that's name recognition more than anything. So I love those games. You get Minnesota in San Juan Capistrano at a tournament right before Thanksgiving. So neutral side, although it should be quite a bit of
CBU home game.
Yeah, it's only 45 minutes or so away from campus. But circling back as well, the road games, the true road games of the non-conference, you've got Washington, and then you play Cal Poly. That's not an easy place to play up in SLO. on a Saturday night. That should be pretty fascinating. A program that's been down over the past few years, but it's still a true road game. And then the one that I really have circled, and I know you're going to be there as well, Kyle, is the game down in San Diego on December 10th, I believe that is. Obviously, Steve Lavin now the man down there, a whole bunch of changes to their roster. So, if you got them early in the year, first 3 or 4 games, you might get them while they're still kind of acclimating their system, getting used to playing with each other, all those things. But by December 10th, I mean, we're several games into the season. So that will be a challenge. I think that game is circled as a WCC opponent. You're playing on the road down there in San Diego against a coach that's very well known nationally, has the recognition in terms of his name and trying to build a brand there at USD. So yeah, all in all, I think very solid non-conference schedule. Maybe not the pop of playing in Arizona or a Texas or one of those big time blue blood programs, but I do think that there's balance and depth throughout the entire thing.
My biggest concern with it, and I think it's a schedule that is good for CBU in the first year of being NCAA tournament eligible. I think when I was looking at it, I was guesstimating maybe 11-2, somewhere in that range, 10-3. I really think, and that's taking into account they're playing a Pac-12 team on the road, and they're playing Minnesota, a Big Ten team who's, I don't want to say they're all around better, but it's just one of those things that that CBU is not going to be favored in that game. But like you said, they're not these top tier Power 6 schools that, I mean, we saw Utah Valley go up to Seattle and beat Washington pretty handily last year. New Mexico State went and beat Washington State. That's kind of where Washington and Minnesota, I feel like, are right now. And we've talked about it with the roster that Rick and his staff have put together, the depth that's there, the experience that's there. I mean, you got a Riley Batten who's played in the Pac-12. I mean, you got Timothy Egoefe.
Egoefe. You were right there. Yeah.
A big 7-footer that's played in the Big East with Georgetown. I mean, you've got guys that can play. Joe Quintana played in the West Coast against Gonzaga and BYU. I mean, it's not like this CBU team is I don't want to say this in the most kind words. It's not the CBU of years past. I mean, there's depth there. There's size. There's shooters all over the floor, which, I mean, CBU is known for. But the depth is the difference for me this year, I feel like. Like, that's just kind of what I'm seeing from the Lancers and why I feel like 11-2 should be a realistic goal, if not 12-1 or so in non-conference play.
Well, certainly if that's the case and CBU is 11-2 or 12-1 after non-conference, then for your power rankings, I need to see CBU on top because I think, yes, again, you're not playing in Arizona, you're not playing in Texas, but you are playing a defending conference champion in Long Beach State. You are playing a team in Washington that won over 15 games last year. You're playing a very solid, like you said, Minnesota team where the record might not show, but the Big Ten is the best basketball conference in America, right there with the Big 12. I mean, you can kind of go A1, A2 right on that. But, right there, they aren't at the very bottom of the Big Ten. They're a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team, which means they're a very competitive program. Sure. Then you add in San Diego. So, I think all things considered, Weber State, we haven't even mentioned them. They're good year in and year out. They're very competitive. That being from Utah. So, if you're only losing 2 games in that schedule, I'd say that's really, really impressive because early in the season, and I know every program basically in the country is going to deal with this due to the portal, due to all the new names around, but you're going to have to also mesh. And that's where you want to have some easy games early in the season. And really those aren't there. So my point is yeah, CBU might be favored in quite a few of these games because they're at home, but they're not going to be favored by 20 points right, like they would be last year when they played, I don't want to disrespect any school, but you name
Valley State or something.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. You're going to be favored by, the Long Beach State game. I think that'll be close to probably a pick 'em or very close,
Yeah.
just based on what they did last year. And then you bring in, on the road against Cal Poly. Yeah, maybe CBU's favored, but you're on a road game, so probably won't be that by that much. So it's not going to be like every single game's like this is an expected win.
Right.
So there will be tough games and there will be close games, but I do think that helps a team, especially circling into conference play. And I think in years past, that's maybe where it's hurt a little bit. Where CBU last year in non-conference had a very good record. They won many games by big spreads, and then when they got to conference play, as we all remember, nearly every game was close. In fact, like down to the final possession, close. It seemed like every single game, and you never know.
We rehashed that like every time we talked on the podcast last year. I mean, wow. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So, you never really know what goes into that closing out late games. There's so many different factors, but it's muscle memory and repetition. And if you have those kind of games early in non-conference, you're able to gel as a team. You may lose a couple, you may win a couple of close games, but you'll know that you've been to war, you've been to battle with your teammates. And so then when you get into a close conference game against GCU, against New Mexico State, against Stephen F. Austin, you name it, then you can say, okay, remember, guys, what we did against San Diego. You remember this situation that took place against Washington. Whereas, okay, we went to McHale, we played Arizona. They're unbelievable. They have 2 7-footers. We lost by 25, and that's considering we still played decent basketball. They're just insane.
Right.
So, there's different ways to look at it.
I didn't say my concern. My concern is this. They got to win every game at home that they're playing. And I say that with all due respect for the CBU Event Center. It's an amazing facility. I wasn't there when it was really rocking, obviously, because there was still maybe COVID issues or something. But they have to win all those games at home. And here's why. They don't have opportunities on the schedule to get a quad 1 win, to get I was looking at the net rankings from last year, and that's my only concern, because if they lose a home game to, even if it's a Weber State or maybe a Long Beach State, depending, that could hurt them that'll hurt them more than, say, a Sam Houston at Utah or Oklahoma State or something like that, if that makes sense. The seeding system is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But with CBU having so many home games, they have to win them all for it not to come back to haunt them in the long run, compared to what maybe some other teams are playing and have opportunities for those quad 1 wins, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does to an extent. I kind of want to push back on one point. If you were to look over the past, we'll go small sample size, past 3 years, off the top of my head, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 occasions. How many quad 1 wins have there been?
Sure, and I don't want to say that like we're getting a ton of quad 1 wins. We're not.
Right.
What I mean is it's
so I guess my point would be, I think it's safe to assume Washington and potentially even Minnesota would be quad 2 win.
Right. Yep.
And if the conference really isn't stacking up quad 1 wins anyways, and there might be 1 or 2 a year if it's a good year,
sure,
depending on other school schedules, quad 2 wins really are the difference maker, the separator, because there's going to be a ton of quad 3, there's going to be a ton of quad 4 for both sides,
right?
For everyone, I should say. So it's quad 2 games.
It's more of the home loss against a lower net team or lower Ken Palm team, because the formula combines both, than it is a road loss against, say, a BYU or who goes where, a St. Mary's for that instance. That's the thing that's why I'm saying they have to win those games at home, because they're winnable games. Let's put it that way. They're winnable, and I think you can agree with that.
Sure.
That they're winnable games. And that's my thing, is they have to win those games and then go pull off, and we've talked about this before, go pull off a win over a Washington or a Minnesota, or even beat UNLV when you get the chance to play them, possibly at the, in California. I just think that's my only concern, but I feel like CBU has the roster, has the depth to win the games that they're supposed to win. And this probably won't even be a discussion when we get to, conference play at the end of December.
Yeah, and I think also, if the benchmark is winning your home games, I think anyone in the program will tell you they not expect, but that is one of their core goals as is with every team, but to win your home games. And I do think you're right. I think, my main point is years past, CBU still played a ton of home non-conference games. They've committed themselves to being able to do that financially. And it's a good thing, trying to grow a brand out here in the Inland Empire and establish themselves as a Division I program in Southern California. And I think they've done a good job of that. But I guess my main thing is, yeah, you're playing a lot of home games still, but it's not a game you're going to be favored by 25. It's going to be a game you're favored by 7. So I definitely see what you're saying, but I do think it's fair to say that it is a much better, more well-rounded schedule, maybe lacking a couple of big names, but in terms of overall competition, I think it's a much, much better schedule than what we've seen in the past. And, I think the coaching staff did a good job on it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think it's balanced to the fact that it's not top loaded with top 50, teams or opponents, but it's also not unbalanced with a bunch of sub 300 opponents just to rack up wins. There's a balance there that I applaud, Doc Wellman and Rick Croy and the staff for putting it together. I think ultimately it's a challenging schedule, and we're going to see right off the gate, like you said, a Long Beach State. I mean, that's not an easy game, right, to start a new season with somewhat of a new roster. So it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm so looking forward to November 7th. Yeah. Not just for CBU, but for everybody in the WAC. I mean, the games that I showed on the website for season openers for everybody, it's like, this is going to be nuts on November 7th. The WAC's either going to get talked about really well or it's going to fall flat on its face. And I love it. I'm so excited.
What I'm hearing is night one overreactions are going to be had, whether it's good or bad.
True. Yeah. True. Because everybody's going to be like, oh, how's that going to affect our seating? How's that going to affect the seating for – it's like –
You've got 3 months.
Folks, it's just one game. We've got 3.5 months, 4 months to figure this all out. Like, just calm yourself. But, still, just the matchups that are going to happen on November 7th. I mean, you got Long Beach State, CBU. You've got Utah State, Utah Valley. I mean, oh, good gracious. Who else do you got? I mean, there's just so many good games that I'm excited for it.
Yeah, totally agree.
Good times. We talked a lot about that schedule. We just took up 15 minutes of talking about the CBU schedule. I guess we could end there. I don't know. I mean,
hey, you're not keeping me. We're excited for hoops. What can we say?
Well, I mean, I gotta go get a haircut because we got family pictures this week. I got a trip to Dallas this weekend. Going to my first NFL game in person.
Cowboys guy?
No, my sister lives down in Fort Worth.
Okay.
So she's up here for the week to get family pictures. And then my brother and I are flying back. We're all three of us flying back to Dallas. And Sunday we're going to a Rangers game at Globe Life Field. And then we're walking over to Cowboy Stadium for the Sunday night football game.
Unreal.
Between the Cowboys and the Bucks. So my first NFL game in person, I get to see at Cowboy Stadium, and I get to see Tom Brady in person. Yep. I mean, it's a win-win situation, right?
You are living large in WAC country in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Well, that's the funny thing. I'm going to Huntsville Saturday night, to visit with Hooten and Chris Mudge and their staff, and then going to Abilene on Monday before I fly back to check out the new Moody Coliseum there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So taking the time to make it a little bit of a business trip too. So
that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's what I try to do. I was out to Riverside last year and going to try and get out there again. And
we expect you.
When I saw that they're playing San Diego, I was like, honey, I'm going to take you to San Diego. We're going to, see the sights and do some things before the game. I'll go cover the game, and maybe we'll do some other things, Sunday before we fly back. But this is a lot of me an opportunity to meet a lot of new people, awesome people like yourself, and go a lot of awesome places too. And it's a good time, and just trying to make the most of it. So
putting a bow on the schedule. One more thing, nothing to do with basketball whatsoever, but the road games are in great places. You mentioned it. What's worse, a December trip to San Diego, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Flow on the Central Coast is beautiful. You go up to Seattle for a game. San Juan Capistrano is beautiful in Orange County. So they're doing it right in terms of – I'm very happy where the road games are in the non-conference. We'll put it that way. It has nothing to do with what's going to happen on the floor, but in terms of destinations, big time.
You mean you don't want to go to Laramie like GCU is in the middle of December?
My grandparents are from Wyoming. I will never say a bad word about the state of Wyoming. They are very proud Casper, Wyoming natives. So I will not comment, but I will simply say weather-wise, San Diego compared to Laramie in December, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, that's a great response. Great response.
And
on that note, we will finish up. Braiden Bell, the voice of the Lancers. Follow him on Twitter. I believe it's at Braiden Bell PXP.
That's right.
There we go. See, I didn't even need to look at Twitter for that. Not even a note here, because I've talked to this guy. One of the best. It's awesome that always talks, some hoops with you, baseball with you. And, now you're a jack of all trades doing multiple sports over just basketball. So always a pleasure, my friend.
Hey, it's great having thank you for having me on, I should say. I always enjoy it, and first of many. I know this becomes like a weekly thing, and I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, click the link in the description below to get all your Dodger postseason fan gear. I know Braiden's excited. Dodgers are loaded again. Did they beat the Dodgers on Sunday night, or Padres on Sunday night baseball this week?
Of course they did. Yeah, the Padres are the little brother, and I'll go on record saying that. Yep.
There you go. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, and we'll see you on the next episode of Straight Out Whack Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Out of Whack Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Whack Hoops Digest and Facebook under Whack Hoops Digest for all your Whack Hoops news and information.